Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I will share my screen at this moment. Uh, okay, let me know if everything is going well. As mentioned, I will talk today about the regulatory framework of medicines in Colombia. I'm Julian Figueredo. I have to do the disclaimer. Any opinion and information given under this lecture is not related at all, nor represent in any way my current position at Biogen Inc. I will not speak in any time on behalf of the company's name. And well, I will start talking about the general view of Colombia. As you know, we are a Latin American country, one of the four bigger economies in Latin America. Our current president is Ivan Duque, and this is a elections year. We have some uncertain about the new economical movement that will help the government this year, but we are confident that we will maintain as a stable economy. We are in a stable economy. Here we can see our GDP from the last 6 years. Colombia has not shown any a negative increase in the GDP since the 60s. We are a country with 50.3 million of population. The overall expenditure in health is for the 2020 was 5.9 of the GDP. And we had a negative increase of the economy because of pandemic as several countries, but we already are advancing and in a positive increase. We have a healthcare system driven mainly by public funds. I want to ask you for paying attention in these red lines, where you can see that the close to the 94 of the population is covered in these two regimes, contributive and subsidized. So this is the main focus of our market. It's basically a public market. The system the system works because there is this contributive regime, and this is related to the workers. So workers have to pay some percentage of the monthly income to support the system, to finance the system, and to finance this other regime, which is the subsidized. Contributive is from workers, subsidized is for people, vulnerable people, low income people. And this is basically where all the country is. So this is our target in a business. There is a very, very low private channel. So we basically don't have a private channel. It is only people who are working in companies like multinationals or with very high incomes in the country. So my recommendation is always think that Colombia will be driven by a public commerce. And also it is important that the health system is managed by some private entities, which are called EPS. So they are private entities managing the funds of the health system. And they are important challenge because they have a limited budget. The government give a limited budget year by year, depending on the users of every EPS. So they all the time are trying to save money in every way. in every way. So it is important to keep this in mind, because business always will be very focused on public and in a saving money environment all the time. We have like a overall or universal coverage. We have a law in Colombia, which is the statutory law in health, which declare or states the health as a fundamental right. And according to this, the government should have to pay or to cover any related issue without health. In paper, it works very well, but in the practice, we have or a lot of constraints to do this. So there are like a constant challenge in saving funds from this system, and there are a lot of troubles to, for example, selling expensive medicines. Regarding the healthcare system, we have these four main institutions. Of course, it's bigger, but this is the institutions that are mainly related with the medicines reimbursement. We have the Minister of Health, of course. He or it basically leads and regulates all the system. We have Inbima, which is our regulatory agency. So they treat all the matters related to the marketing authorizations of the product. So this is the focus of our of this lecture. We have the IETS, which is the Health Technology Assessment Agency. We will talk a little later about this one. And we have others, which is the payer entity. So it basically manages the resource for coverage of the system, for medicines, and for any procedure in health. Talking more deeper in the regulatory framework, I would like to make a zoom in Inbima. Inbima is, as mentioned, our regulatory agency. This is the structure of the regulatory agency. They work with a board of directors. They have a general director, and they have these main directorates. This is the Directorate of Food and Beverage, the Directorate of Medical Devices and Other Technologies, Directorate of Medicines and Biologics, Directorate of Cosmetics, Pesticides, and Household Cleaning Products, and Directorate, well, all the management of sanitary operations. We also will do some in the Directorate of Medicine and Biologic Products, because it's the directorate we work with for the marketing authorization purposes. This directorate has all these groups. It has the GMP groups, the pharmacovigilance group, marketing authorization on biologics, marketing authorization on synthetics, clinical research, and clinical commit support. Clinical commit support is a group which support the clinical commit or the review commission. This is highlighted here because we will talk a little more later about this. But this is an external entity of Inbima. It's not officially part of Inbima. This is an external commit composed by several experts in different fields, like pharmacology, biotechnology. It's about toxicology. It's about 10 or 12 people, but they have an important constraint that they are mainly academic people. They are not physicians or clinical physicians. So it's an important challenge for us to get the approval of new medicines, because they have a very theoretical mind, you know. So it's a challenge, but we will talk a little deeper later. Okay, regarding the marketing authorizations and the general considerations in Colombia, it is very important to understand that here in Colombia, the marketing authorization will define the reimbursement of every medicine. The indication in the marketing authorization will be the population that will be will define, sorry, the population that will be covered by the health system and will be reimbursed by the system. So it is very important because we could face several troubles in the marketing authorization journey to get the approval of some indication, and they will always aim or intend to restrict the indications as much as possible according to the evidence, the clinical evidence we show. So it's important to have this overall context in mind because, for example, if we are managing medicines for orphan disease or very specific conditions with high cost, it will be a specific an important challenge to manage during the health authority, during the marketing authorization process. Of course, there are several considerations to get a marketing authorization in the country. There are these main types of marketing authorizations. We have the marketing authorization for manufacture and sell, for import and sell, import, package and sell, import, semi-manufacture and sell, semi-manufacture and sell. For example, Korean purposes, I consider the most relevant are import and sell, import, package and sell, import, semi-manufacture and sell. The most common is just import and sell, and sometimes it's possible or very common to do some kind of packaging here in the country with some 3PLs. So I just wanted to show you this kind of, but the most likely you will need to use this one, import and sell. The decree, the mother decree for marketing authorization purposes is the decree 677 from 1995. Is the first decree that Colombian implemented for marketing authorization purposes. Is actually a very good and complete decree. Of course, it has been necessary to update it through the years. And this decree states that any marketing authorization approval for any product should perform these 3 different evaluations and steps: the pharmacological evaluation, the legal evaluation, and the pharmaceutical evaluation. In the past, these evaluations were done step by step, so the marketing authorization could take about 3 years in big grant because first you had to make the submission to the clinical advisory committee for getting a pharmaceutical evaluation approved, and after that you need to request for a pharmaceutical evaluation, and after that you had to request for a legal evaluation. But since the 2019, Colombia implemented the decree 21OC, which states that these all evaluations should be done at the same time and in a parallel way. So it was very nice because it definitely shortened the timing of getting a marketing authorization. We will talk a little later about timing, but currently we are having or managing for about 18 months for getting a market authorization, which is very good, because in the past it was almost 36 months. So this is a great thing and a great implementation that the country made. Just a quotation through all on the presentation, you will find these links is where you can just click and go to the regulation online. It's in Spanish, of course, but you can get from an easy translation. Okay. Every evaluation will have to fulfill a checklist of requirements as any or all health authorities in the world. But I won't show you the specific forms because it's easy to get. You just go to the Kpbma website and get the form for a specific matter. I wanted to communicate you the importance for you and overall for emerging markets to work with this common technical document of ICH, the CTD, because it's absolutely useful to request a marketing authorization in Colombia. So if you your companies are used to work with this, it's the best or the more strategical way to perform and to request a marketing authorization in Colombia. This CTD, for people who doesn't know, has 5 models. The model 1 is the administrative documentation, which is specific, or legal documentation, for example, specific for any country. It has the model 2 that is basically summary of the quality, non-clinical, and clinical reports. And we have model 3, quality matters, model 4, non-clinical study reports, and model 5, clinical study reports. This is very useful because in summary, all forms from Kpbma always will request any item from this form. So it is my general advice to use it. And we will talk a little about everything, different evaluations. So we will start talking about the clinical evaluation, which will include the CTD modules 4 and 5. Module 4 and 5, as mentioned, implies the non-clinical study reports and clinical reports. The module 5 will request non-clinical information, in vitro and in vivo assays, pharmacology information, in vitro and in vivo, pharmacokinetics, in vitro and in vivo, and toxicology, in vitro and in vivo. And module 5 will, as mentioned, clinical information. We will have to show to health authority the biopharmaceutics characteristics of our product, the clinical pharmacology, the efficacy and safety mainly. The clinical evaluation in Kpbma will ensure safety and efficacy. As mentioned, we need to present to the health authority the non-clinical data, the clinical data, and the information of post-commercialization. This evaluation will be performed by the clinical committee, the same one that I mentioned before. This is a big challenge. I consider the biggest challenge for getting a marketing authorization in Colombia, because this committee is extremely strict with their concept, and also are a little complex. For example, we have been facing several experiences in the country that it's very common that Colombia gets approvals of the indications and the marketing authorizations very different of the global indications, the global approved indications around the world. It's because they are theoretically just looking for efficacy and safety matters, but also they are always thinking in the need of restrict to save expenditure of the system. So it's very complicated because it's not their functions according to regulations, according to the health authority purposes, but they're actually doing in the practice. So we need to have a lot of resilience to work with this. And also sometimes they are not very related with innovative, for example, clinical designs. Some of you could know at this moment the adaptive clinical trials, for example, or for example, medicines that could be authorized with only phase 2 studies because the condition of the medicine, for example, or the medicine or the disease, for example, for an orphan disease, they are very, very close mind in getting a develop with phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials, and are very close mind to other designs. So this is an important challenge. We have been trying to push back here in the country through different pharmaceutical chambers and things like that, but it's been an important challenge. But also it's an important challenge, but it's not for not motivate you, but it's for just to be clear. So it's complicated, but we have some advantage here in the country. For example, we don't need local clinical data to fill a marketing authorization. Some countries like Russia, Brazil, China needs to fill with local population. Colombia doesn't request to fill with local population. But for example, Colombia is a country that could have a strategic participation in clinical trials. because we are, as mentioned, a big country. We are 50 million of population, and so we have an important prevalence on several diseases, and also we have a very good facilities to perform any clinical trials. So maybe if you're working with clinical trials, you can focus on Colombia, because also, for example, health authority has very good regulations and very good established procedures to perform these clinical trials. So Colombia is a very good option to perform a clinical trial, despite this is not mandatory to include local population. Unfortunately, in Colombia, there is not orphan or drug priority review for application. There is not fast track. All people all the time is asking for fast track, and there is not. All medicines, despite is for an orphan drug or for a very specific disease, will have to perform the same pathway and the same timelines than a regular medicine. And also another good thing in Colombia is that there are no specific requirements on safety and labeling. Of course, it is requested risk management plan for new molecules, but there are not a specific requirements. We have, of course, a regulation for a risk management plan, but it's extremely aligned with the international standards and mainly with European standards. And it's possible to get one meeting with the clinical committee. It's our decision. We can request the meeting or not. And it's very strategic to perform this kind of meetings because it's the opportunity we have to show and to explain to this clinical committee our clinical development and all the concerns they could have, or some doubts that others health authority could have. It's very strategic. So I highly recommend to have this meeting with this committee, because it's important to shape their mind and their concerns regarding our products. It is important here that remark that generics will not need a clinical evaluation. There is all the safety and efficacy evaluation should be performed for new molecules or biologics, but generics will not require this information, this evaluation, sorry. There is this manual of pharmaceutical norms that is basically a legal document, which is basically a list of molecules that has been approved, already approved in the country, and the molecule or better the medicine should have to be approved if your medicine is approved under the same active pharmaceutical ingredient, same strength, same ATC, and same pharmaceutical form, you won't need an evaluation of clinical safety and efficacy. You just made a dossier for quality issues and will be evaluated by the technical group of Kpbma and not for the clinical committee. This supports the timing a little, but not so much because this is very similar the steps that the submission should perform inside the health authority. However, there are, of course, these constraints in Colombia and a specific regulation for products that request bioavailability and bioequivalence evaluation. Because it could be a generic, but it could be necessary to perform a bio evaluation, and it should be approved and performed by the clinical committee. Also, we have this regulation, the resolution 1124 from 2016. This is a very complete regulation and very clear regulation regarding the bio studies. This is an important challenge also because they are extremely strict with this regulation, and this regulation already has specific constraints, like for example, they demand a certificate on good bio practices, and this is a very important challenge because many authorities do not does not issue this kind of certificates. So it's a very challenging. So most of the time you will request, or you will need to request an Inbima authorization and an Inbima visit to get this authorization. This certificate will have a 3-year validity. Inbima specific should authorize the center to perform the bio study. Of course, all these studies should have a GCP, good clinical practices. And the regulation states the audit checklist. So what specific items will be evaluated in any facility to get this authorization. Some bio studies are accepted from reference authorities. They accepted studies from facilities which are already authorized by the Pan American Health Organization, or Pan American Health Organization level 4, because there are several levels, 1 to 4, and 4 is the highest. And so some institutions that have been approved by health authorities, authorized by Pan American Health Organization as a level 4, will be accepted for Inbima. Also, they will accept centers which has been audited and authorized by EMA from Europe, FDA from United States, Health Canada, TMDA from Japan, Swissmedic from Switzerland, and TGA from Australia. And the regulation specifically states a list of active pharmaceutical ingredients that require bio studies. This is a list with about 19 molecules. And according to regulation, should be periodically reviewed and updated. The list states the innovative reference comparator with a specific brand. And also this regulation requests that all extended release form, no matter the drug substance, the active pharmaceutical ingredient, no matter, all extended release form, new oral forms should have or should present bio studies. Regarding or talking deeper about the pharmaceutical evaluation, the CTD Model 3 quality, Inbima usually has, as mentioned, forms, but this is in a general way. A Model 3 of CTD will include or will have the entire requirements that Inbima could need. The model 3 of the CTD is or has two principal or two main parts, as the drug substance part and the drug product. Drug substance, of course, is the active pharmaceutical ingredient, and develop very detailed those details. For example, for drug substance develop, it requires a general description, the description of the manufacturer, characterization, control of drug substance, standards of reference standards and material, container closure system, and stability. If for the product, it state description, composition, pharmaceutical development, manufacture, control of excipients, control of product in process and drug product specifications, reference standards, container closure system, and stability. Those which are in blue are those that are requested for getting a marketing authorization or for fulfill the technical evaluation or a marketing authorization for a synthetic drug in Colombia. Because biologics will request all the detailing information from the drug substance part, but we will talk a little deeper and better of biologics later. So in the meantime, we just get the information that the blue requirements will be requested or will be needed for getting a marketing authorization or for perform the technical evaluation for getting a market authorization from a synthetic product. And this highlight regarding the stability, because from 2024, the stability for drug substance or active pharmaceutical ingredients will be mandatory and there are some specific requirements on this stability. Overall, we have these considerations to get success. So Colombia is a zone for B for a stability zone. They are very, very strict requesting these studies in zone 4 or refrigeration. Sometimes, for example, the drug product can be stable under 25 degrees, that this is zone 2. Zone 4 is like 30 degrees and 70 percent of humidity. But Colombia will not accept zone 2, definitely will not accept zone 2 zones. And in the worst case, if you only are able to show and to present these zone 2 studies, you will have to request for refrigeration or for refrigeration state because of the climatic zone in the country. In Colombia, it's not necessary. This is a good news. In country testing and local methods validation transfer are not needed. It's very good because sometimes it's very expensive to perform or to start a business in any country. So we just accept the methods, the analytic methods in the dossier, and it's not necessary. But it's necessary to perform local release for some biologics like some vaccines and some blood-derived products, but not for the rest of the products. Every strain concentration specifically will mean a separate marketing authorization. So it is important to consider because it will change timing and will change costs and also post-approval commitments. If we have presentation with different concentration, we will have to submit different marketing authorizations. Overall, the city model 3 is all required. So there are, as mentioned again, there are specific forms that we can access through the Kpbma webpage. But if you have managed a city design, you won't find any problem to perform these requirements. And GMP and GLP certifications, of course, are mandatory. So we can here talk a little deeper about GMP and GLP considerations. This is a must to start and to perform the pharmaceutical evaluation. We have this modern decree, the 549 from 2001. It's basically states what a GMP certificate will have to state. This regulation also states a self-inspection checklist that you will have to attach to the submission when you are requesting for a GMPs. So there is a checklist that you will have to ensure that you already have reviewed and fulfill every item in the checklist to be able to approve to apply for this GMP inspection. They accept in BIMA accept GMPs from some reference countries. They accept GMP certificates from EMA, Europe, FDA, Health Canada, Japan, Australia, and this GMP has a validity of 3 years. There is this new, this other resolution, the 302A from 2008. This resolution established the need of specific areas for a specific drug substance like beta-lactamic antibiotics, sexual endocrine substance, antineoplastics, immunosuppressants, radiopharmaceuticals, and biologicals. There should be specific and dedicated lines in regulations to this kind of active pharmaceutical ingredients. Also, we have the resolution 3619 from 2013, where adopted as a mandatory the GLPs. It's basically adopted as official the report 44 from World Health Organization in the Annex 1 of the Technical Report Series 957. It's basically what the World Health Organization states in this document, so you can understand from them, and its validity also will be for 3 years. Additionally to this, we have the resolution 1160 and the 2119 that basically had implemented some variation to this first decree, the 549, and they here adopted as an official document the Annex 4 of the World Health Organization in the report 37 of the Technical Report Series 908. So it's basically the adoption of this official document. It's important to highlight here that we currently are managing and working with the report 37 from World Health Organization. In the past, we were working lots of time. We were with the report 32, but it's no longer accepted. Now we are on 37 report, and also it updated the GMP and audit checklist for sterile products, adopting officially the Annex 6 of the World Health Organization Report 45. And currently, we are very close to approve a new regulation. This is under discussion and is very close to approve, and it's expected to be approved at the end of this year. And this regulation basically adopts all the background that I just showed you, but it has the good things and very good thing for Korea that it will be mutual recognition agreements. So they can celebrate mutual recognition agreements with any country, and they will be accepted. And Korea is one of the most important countries, for example, and the most likely countries to get this kind of agreement, but it will have only at the end of this year. And also will accept or will officially adopt the GMP certificates issued from any health authority authorized as a level 4 for the Pan American Health Organization. And this is the good and the new thing. We will talk a little later about the timings. If maybe you could have some question regarding timing, we will develop in later better. Sorry. Talking about the legal evaluation, this is, as mentioned, the module 1 of the CTD. And in Colombia, this is the consideration that we need to have to perform a successful legal evaluation. Colombia is a CPP dependent country, so we need a CPP from the origin country. So we need a CPP issue from the Korean Health Authority to submit the dossier here in Colombia. It's necessary to have before submitting the marketing authorization, it's necessary to make the legal trademark register. It is performed in the Superintendence of Industry and Commerce. It's not in the Health Authority. It's necessary to analyze and to implement all contract agreements with local distributors, for example, local distributor or local 3PL or local stability provider, because sometimes people just hire the stability studies here in the country because it's cheaper, and also they have all the experience working the stability studies in some form, for example. So all of those contracts must to be signed before submitting the marketing authorization, the contract with 3PL, and it's necessary to establish the artworks, the packaging of the product. We have a good item in the regulation that the country of origin packaging will be accepted, but it will be necessary to perform any adequation with a sticker in a local 3PL with a minimal information. Or also you can just prepare a specific artwork and a specific package for your medicines in Colombia. And additional to that, we need a letter of authorization for the manufacturer. And this is very complicated sometimes because there are the like the general agreement with the marketing authorization, international marketing authorization holder of the product, and a local agreement and a general agreement with the manufacturer. And sometimes the market authorization holder in Colombia will be different. So they will request to establish the relationship between this manufacturer abroad and this marketing authorization holder. And sometimes this is outside of the global agreement. So it is important to consider because the manufacturer will have to accept and recognize as the importer or market authorization country authorization holder, sorry, in the country, in Colombia. Okay, and now we can talk a little about biologics and biotechnological. This is interesting. This is a little new in Colombia, but now we have a very specific and clear regulations for biotechnologies. Sorry. We have this modern decree on biotechnologies, the 1682 from 2014, and they define biologic as this medicine derived of any living organism or their parts, for example, tissues, cell, blood derived, viruses, microorganisms. Those products can be produced through, but not only with cell cultures, microorganisms, viruses, propagation, and any derived of biologic products, transgenics, recombinant DNA techniques, or hybridome techniques. This is important because, for example, very old products like enoxaparins has been considered under this regulation as a biologics. And enoxaparins, I don't know if you are related with this, are extracted from the blood of porks. And it's a very traditional product that, of course, has not, or the manufacturer of this product has not the entire CTD for this kind of product. So it is important to consider that if we have a product that has been obtained from a fluid or from something biologic, it will be considered as a biologic in the country and will have a specific and more requirements for this. We have these two complementary resolutions, the 4419 that specifically states the requirements for immunogenicity, but it's basically an adoption of the FDA guideline and the evaluation, the immunogenicity evaluation that will have any product. In BIIB overall is not very um, strong with this evaluation because unfortunately this regulatory agency has a little lack of technical capacities for this. These evaluations, all these technical evaluations are not performed by the clinical committee, are performed by the, for example, the biology groups. And we have an important profile of the technical people working there, that there is people so young, there are no good a contract characterizations for those people. So there is a lot of rotation of personnel. So INVIMA is not strong working with this. So they basically most of the time they are limited to approve looking in a checklist most of the time. So this is not so complex in the country. I don't consider this is not complex in the country. We have a specific resolution for biologics, for stability on biologics, that is basically adopting the ICH guideline. But we have, for example, an important characteristic here is that the health authority always will request, when we are talking about biologics, they will request stability data within the entire shelf life. So we are expecting to have 36 months of the shelf life. We will have to present 36 months of the stability data studies. So, and also on final and batch and the final scale of the batch. It is important. It's very, very conservative at this moment. They don't accept extrapolations or any kind or assessment related to the conformation of the protein, because, for example, sometimes there are some changes in the manufacturing process, or there are a change with the primary packaging material. So it's possible to perform any kind of evaluation of the structure of the protein and to show that the stability will be or will remain the same. So they definitely don't accept that. They always want to see an entire shelf life package of the stability data. And we have this resolution, the 6402, specifics for GMPs on biologics, is basically the official adoption of the report of the World Health Organization on the technical report series 823. Of course, as the other regulations, they show a checklist for submitting the application for the GMPs. Sorry, I didn't mention the GMPs and GLPs are separate audit. It's possible to get a bundled audit, but it's necessary to perform two submissions, two requests, and be very clear. I need the approval for the GMPs, GMPs and the GLPs, and the resolutions or the final approval will have to be clear that are approving or either GLPs as GMPs. There are, when we will talk about cost later, so don't worry. And of course, biologics must to fulfill a quality, safety, and efficacy evaluation. In biologics is more useful and more necessary to have an entire CTD development, because actually the local form requests item by item from the CTD. So it's a must to work with the CTD model. They will have a request to request with module 4, module 5, module 3 with the entire drug substance items, and the module 3 with the entire drug product items. There are these three ways to get a marketing authorization for a biological biotechnology in the country. And this is specifically stated in regulations. We have the first one that it's full dossier. It's basically when we have a new product on biotechnologies. So we will have to submit all of this information, module 4, 5, 3, with the two components. And we have this the comparability way, which is basically used for biosimilars. They talk about the comparability exercise. We will need to be very careful because they will be evaluate, and this evaluation will be performed by the clinical committee. So they are a little like more confident in this kind of evaluation. They have a little more experience that, for example, of the technical evaluation. So it's necessary to ensure that they are actually biosimilar. They actually have biosimilarity. And also we have this one late one, abbreviated comparability. It was a very, very argued approach in the government when the new regulation were being implemented, because it's kind of biosimilarity way, but with less studies. So far, I don't know. It's necessary to mark and to be very clear about the way that you will adopt or will you apply for getting a marketing authorization on biologic is specifically requested in the form. So as far as I know, there are no people asking for abbreviated comparability via, because it's very confused. It's not clear. It's expected to have as a via like biosimilars, but with less studies. So you are not sure if clinical committee will request more studies. So if you will, if you made a development with abbreviated comparability, you must to be aware that it's probably that clinical committee will request for additional data. So it's very difficult to handle with this pathway. So my recommendation is always working with full dossier and comparability of biosimilars. But this is also an option that could be explored. This was made because the government was intended to decrease cost, to enhance the competence of the market. They, as mentioned, they try to decrease cost, to decrease expenditure all the time. So with more biosimilars in the market, the cost will be reduced and will be better for them. So it was like a desperate way to get this, but this from the technical and regulatory perspective is quite tricky. So it's difficult. Regarding the data protection, Kpbma could accept data protection of the molecules to protect your market, your investment. There is a specific regulation for this, the Decree 2885 from 2002. And basically the main requirement for you to be able to request or to apply for a data protection is that your active pharmaceutical ingredient is not included in the manual of pharmaceutical norms. Do you remember when I was talking about generics? If this is if it's not stated and adopted by this list, you could apply by this one, but it doesn't guarantee that you will have an approval of the data protection, because there are another specific considerations, like for example, it can be for new uses, for new formulations, and there is, for example, new PK, pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics profiles. Nothing of those will be covered by this data protection, only new molecules, and also new molecules that you consider that you made a considerable effort before. For example, I had an experience with a new molecule, the dimethyl fumarate. It's a new molecule and is actually a very new development of the clinical characteristics of this product, but they reject the application from the data protection because they consider that the dimethyl fumarate was very similar to the monomethyl fumarate, to the acid fumaric acid. And according to them, the fumaric acid is very abundant in the nature and they won't protect it because of this. So this is quite of confusing, but overall it's for new molecules that you can protect your market. Talking about expected timing, regulatory agency has very inconsistent timelines. Unfortunately, it's extremely tough, this method with this. So this is a very high level estimations. We have that a submission of GMP could take for about 10 months. A submission of the manual marketing authorization could take to 16 to 20 months, and post-approval change could take to 6 months to 12 months, depending if they are synthetics, or more 12 to 24, depending if they are biologics, because since they are different groups, it has different capacity of people and things like that. So here we can see a little deeper how it could work. And you request a GMP authorization, you could take about 1 or 6 months on getting the schedule of the audit, and after getting the schedule of the audit, you can take 2 or 6 months of getting the visit to get the inspection. And once you have the visit and you have a positive concept, during the meeting, you will get a minute of the meeting. If in this minute is a positive concept, with this minute you can apply with a marketing authorization. We don't need to wait for the final approval, official approval, because it will take 2 or 3 months later. No. Just with the minimum, with the positive concept, we will be able to apply for the marketing authorization. So would you apply for a marketing authorization? INVIMA only request have one opportunity of requirement with one opportunity of response to questions. So you will apply and you will have this to 7 to 10 months a requirement. The time you could take for answering this requirement, and then 5 or 10 months for the revision of the response and for getting a final approval. This is very overall. As mentioned, unfortunately, the timing in INVIMAs are extremely variable. For example, at this moment, the health authority has a cybernetic attack, and they close entirely its operation, and the expectations to solve this attack, it's about 3 or 4 months, and the operations are entirely closed. And of course, it will have a truly negative impact in any timelines. So in all the times are happening things like that all the times. Someone quit. So someone quit and let this process abandoned. So they are delayed. There are a lot of charge, of burden, or in new products. So just they stop to evaluate renewals, for example. There are no people to evaluate variations on biologics. So variations on biologics at this moment are close than 2 years. So it's all the time we are dealing with these matters. We here can develop a little the expected cost. This is of course range because intervals, because there are different costs for different specific requests, but a GMP certificate could cost you from $13,000 to $35,000. A new job application for marketing authorization could cost you from $3,000 to $70,000, and post-approval changes are cheap. It could be from $1,000 to $4,000. It depends, of course. For example, it depends on the category of the country. If they have to make an audit, of course, Asia and Europe will be the most expensive. For example, the cost could change because you can request one payment for getting the 2 GMPs and GPL certification. So this is the most expensive. Or core biologic products are more expensive than synthetic products. So it depends on this. But this is the overall range you can work with. And just to end, this is very important because it's being considered a new regulation to talk about pricing considerations. So there is this decree 433 from 2018, and it talk about therapeutic value, and they are expecting to get an evaluation of the therapeutic value with a value dossier, and this evaluation should be made by the IETS, the same institution I told you before. And it's very critical because they are expecting to grant marketing authorization based on this therapeutic value evaluation. So this is not a current decree because it's been sued. For example, it's a highly discussion because of course the industry is asking for marketing authorization should be granted in a safety and efficacy basis, not in cost and value and considerations. So this year, this will be solved, and something related to this, I can at this moment tell what, but the value, the therapeutic value will be critical for the approval of a marketing authorization. And that's it for now. Thank you very much. This is our city, my flat, and my pictures of my city in Bogota, and my contact information. And I'm open to questions now.